I laid everything out. Now I just have to find the motivation to flip the switch and turn the soldering iron on. I'm not moving too fast today. I slept good, but just not moving too fast for some reason. But there it is, the first 743 wing ready to be soldered up. I don't dislike soldering. I just sometimes have a little bit of a problem getting started on projects. 3 minutes after I get into it, it'll be fine. I'll probably grab the other one and solder it right up too. I've actually prepared all the snap headers, that's what I call them, pins, wires to go between the BEC board and the flight controller, and that capacitor goes in there too. Not really needed for 3S. Debatable on 4. Everybody thinks it's needed on 6 and above. Just stick it in there. The only thing you're doing there is when you plug in the battery, you're going to charge that capacitor for a millisecond. That way you don't get a spark. I soldered up the pins on one of the flight controllers. I have not soldered up the BEC wires from the flight controller, this board right here, to the board that goes underneath it, the BEC board. Just 4 little connectors, wires come up for that. And I have not soldered the XT60 connectors onto the BEC board for the battery and the ESC. Other than that, I have the RC receiver connected to this flight controller, and I have the GPS hooked to this flight controller. RC receiver right here, 6 pins, GPS right here, 6 pins, and I have the airspeed sensor going in right here. Besides the video transmitter and the camera, which connects to these pins right back here, the servos go down the servo rails here. That's it. You can see inside, maybe. There you go. That little red light is actually, but you can barely see the red of the airspeed sensor in there. So that's at least wired ground and voltage, right? Like I say, I still have to solder up the BEC wires and XT60 connectors.
And as you can see here, this shows I have a 3D fix on the GPS with 9 satellites, 8 satellites connected here in the basement, which is pretty darn good because it's raining like the devil today. Cloudy. And sometimes you can't get a connection with the GPS in this basement at all. You have to take it outside. It's still going down while I talk about it badly, huh? Airspeed, I don't have anybody to blow on the sensor for me. And radio. If we look over in the radio calibration, there you go, throttle high. You can see I have movement in the PWM of the radio. So the RC receiver is working well, CRSF. I haven't checked the MavLink. I've got to go back and remember how you do MavLink on a Crossfire, but that's not hard to do. Just look up one of my previous videos. That's why I do them, so I can go back and review them myself. But there we have the airspeed sensor. Sure is jumping around on that, but I haven't even set it to the correct value. I blew on it. Looks like it did go up. So I think the airspeed sensor's working too. So that's RC receiver, GPS, compass. Does it recognize the compass? Yeah. This compass will be no yaw to it, but yes, it recognizes the compass quite well. GPS, compass, airspeed, RC receiver. Only other thing for me is telemetry, and that would be the Crossfire Mavlink. Their sat just went down from 10 satellites to 9, back to 10. I'm going to leave it sitting here a while and see what it'll lock up here on the bench. All right, so doing a little soldering on flight controllers, then doing a little testing on flight controllers. Let's continue onward.
I hope I can get this to show well. This is that old 765 wing that I destroyed with a soldering iron, soldering up the BEC board. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. I hope that's in focus. Can't really tell with my eyes in the current condition they're in. There were 3 wires had to be soldered on the 765, and they were sorted up from right here. This solder pad, there's 3 of them right across through here. 1, 2, 3. And that was what was the really bad bummer about all this. You had to solder up the ESC and battery wires to these big solder pads down here, and then you had to solder 3 wires, small wires, up in this area. And this is the flight controller. I kind of overheated one of these components someplace in here. Unknown. Only damage to the board is the current sensor doesn't work. After I got it in the mini Talon, had to take it out. So that's basically what my tech used to do. And look at this new 743. First of all, there's 4 places. I don't think this makes much difference one way or another. But they're right here on the edge of the board. Oops. Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here on the edge of the board, flight controller board. And there's through holes. Not solder pads, it's through holes. So you stick the wire through it, you can strip as much as you want. Leave it sticking out the backside as far as you want. Push it through, solder it up, cut it off. Works great. I mean, that's a really good improvement. By the way, on this board, the 9-volt rise to 12 bridge was right here. On the other ones, it's over in here. And down in this area is the camera voltage. And I've got it bridged for 9 volts. And then I've got 9 volts rise to 12 up here. Again, this is what I have to solder up. Last thing I have to solder up on this board. There's nothing more for me to solder on this board except for these 4 holes right here, which is really going to be easy, seeing they're not solder pads like back in the dinosaur days like this that were just really hard to get the soldering iron in there. Which do you do first, by the way? Do you do the small wires and then have them come loose while you're soldering up the big soldering pads? Or do you do the big soldering pads first and then that big old wire sticking up there is in the way? It was really not a good, fun soldering event for me. Can you tell? Let's look at the BEC board for the new one. This is the new BEC board. And now you can see there's the pads you solder the battery and the ESCs to. And then you put the capacitor. I'm going to put the capacitor across these 2. And then these 4 right here are the ones that have to go over from this BEC board. And they're pads this time. They've kind of flipped everything. They're working on it. It's improving each new generation. So these are the pads. I'm going to do those first. They'll be hard to get to. You notice there's not as many small components near this one either. So this is the old BEC board for the 765. Oops. Come on, focus. Please. Come on, you can do it. Piece of junk. These are actually through holes. So this is the BEC board for the 765. Had through holes. Now the flight controller board has through holes, but the BEC board itself has solder pads. But anyway, I'll solder the wire onto these 4 pads, and then I'll solder the ESC pads and battery pads and the capacitor right in here between positive and minus. And then I'll have the 4 ends of this wire just to put through the through holes in the flight controller and solder that down to finish up. So this isn't going to be as bad as the previous flight controllers have been, because they're making positive changes all the time. I'm not sure how much. This is Friday. I actually didn't do anything on Thursday except lay everything out. I kind of did it, most of it today. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. I got other things I need to do, so I don't know how much more of this I'm going to do today. But I got the lion's share of it done and tested. Everything's coming along well. Thanks, guys.